Hi, friends. Welcome back to Transform the Now with Nathan and Tucker. Last time when we left you off, we left you with a parable. And the purpose of parable is to hook you in and give you some time to think and wrestle. And I hope you came to some conclusions. A couple of times since that moment when I have had some quiet moments, I have had some insights on the story. So thank you for the parable, Tucker.
Yeah, you bet.
Let's talk about this a little bit. As people are wrestling with this themselves, we want to leave that kind of the purpose, but I also want them to avoid maybe some false roads here. So talk to us a little bit about like what this parable isn't. Does that work? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we sit with this parable, our brains, our egoic minds, you hear us say that a lot, but this part of our brains loves to take parables and meaning and project it outside of ourselves, and make it concrete so that so that we don't have to change much, right? Our brains have this instinct to be like, oh, I know what this means. It means I'm doing good because da 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 da, right? And then it doesn't demand anything from us. Our egoic minds want status quo, want things to remain as they are, and want everything around them to change, others, the circumstances, the situation. So as we sit with this parable, it's no different. Like, we could take it and then project it out on how the world needs to change around us. But if we actually take it in where it can transform on the inside, some cool things can happen. Let me give an example. You might listen to that parable and think, oh, the city, the skyline, it's my degree that I'm working towards. Hey, cool. I don't have to get my degree. I can just cash it in, go sit on an island and find true peace and joy, right? And if we pin the city as being some goal or some future thing that we've set, that actual thing, and think that we're going to find happiness by giving up all goals, then we've missed it. It's more that the city is the idea that we are going to find true joy, happiness, and peace outside of this present moment, the now. That we could call that island present island, or this set of islands present island. It's here, it's now, it's in front of us, it's this moment, and it provides all of the resources we need to find true deep peace and joy. And that city in the distance is the idea that we are going to find true peace, joy, satisfaction by changing our circumstances in the future, by some future change on the outside of us. So as you sit with that parable, there's a lot more to think about and sit with, and I think it can do some good work inside of us. But remember that that city is not, it doesn't mean stop doing anything. It might suggest more that the idea that joy is away rather than here is what we trip up on, is what our minds always convince us.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, and it's kind of slippery a little bit sometimes, like
Absolutely.
but if we can put it more internal and more present focused rather than external and future focused, I think things will start to click as you wrestle with that a little bit. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Can I give kind of a funny example of how I'm wrestling with this, Nate?
Yeah.
So here, let me just I'll just tell it an experience that happened recently. So I was gonna leave the country a few weeks ago, and 2 days before I left, this analogy just kind of came to me, right? Of the city, of the rowing the boat, of the paradise island, of all of that. And I was heading to the other side of the world. We were going to be in Cambodia. Me and my older brother were heading over there. And the craziest thing happened, that as we were in Cambodia, we weren't planning to visit any islands or anything. But I told him this story that had come to me as an analogy. And I was like, I wonder if we can find any islands. And so we just Googled where we were in Cambodia, and this island just off the coast of Cambodia popped up. And we found a super cheap hotel. And so we booked it and we went there. And the craziest thing, Nate, like I count this one of the more miraculous things that I've ever experienced in my life. But when we went to this island, like it was like the story that had come to me a week and a half before, what like materialized physically in front of me, because the island was just off the shore of Cambodia. There was a city in the distance, and the city skyline was full of buildings that were unfinished because a bunch of investors came into the city. COVID hit, and so they didn't finish their project. And there's this huge city with empty buildings. And I was like, what in the world is going on? Like this, I still to this day do not know how to explain what happened there. But we videoed a bunch of things. Who knows if it's good enough video because I'm such an amateur. But me and my brother like paddled out and tried to reenact a little bit of the story. So ironically, after we had done that, the next morning before we left, I went out to have a good deep meditation and just connect. And so I walked out into the water. I'm on this paradise island. The white sandy beaches are just beautiful and clean. The water is crystal clear. There's fish swimming around my feet. And I'm there in this water, just closing my eyes. And there's a warm breeze and just really cool water. There's palm trees in the distance. There's bird song. There's just I don't know if you could create a more idyllic situation to be present in than what I was experiencing at that moment. And as I was there, the ocean was very calm, but the water was just lapping up a little bit against me as I was seeking calmness and presence and meditation. And I kid you not, my brain said this to me. You know, it'd be a lot better, Tucker, if we did this in the hotel. Like a split second later, I was like, what? Like, seriously. I look around me and I'm like, you're saying inside a hotel room will be more ideal for me to be present than here and now on this paradise island in this situation. And for me, it was ironic, but just true to form. Like the things that my brain brings me to convince me that this moment is not enough are just shocking. Nate, do you relate at all to this?
Oh, dude, I'm only laughing because I feel like that's such a consistent theme in my life, such a consistent theme in my meditation or in my practices. Like, I don't know, just and I don't even know if I can lay a finger on one thing. Again, it's sometimes slippery, but it's that tendency to go away from now and project into the future or the past or anywhere else but here, the hotel room. That's a powerful metaphor for me, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of being human. The nature of our minds is our mind is always going to create a dream for us outside of the current moment, because honestly, that's how our mind really exists, is by saying, okay, this is maybe that's not the best way to say it. That's how our mind has control or finds control in the world, is by painting some picture that it needs us to pursue in order to make sense of reality and our existence.
I think that's an important word, of control and safety. Like that's the same reason we have this internal dialogue sometimes where you're like, look, a dog. And obviously, you know, there's a dog, but you don't need to talk about it in your head. I was walking into a track meet today, and this older lady's walking down the stairs, and no, she's not talking to anybody. She doesn't have Bluetooth in or anything, but she is talking to herself, just narrating the whole descent as she like heavily breathes down these stairs. And I was like, oh, this is like my internal conversation happening on the external of her, right? But it builds up this sense of control, so you feel like you can manage this world, which is sometimes out of our control, right? Like in reality, this world's spinning through space and so big and crazy, and it's like, no, I want to be safe and I want to be controlled. And so finds those ways to exert control there. So I think that's insightful what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great description of it. And as we can, instead of allowing our brain to exert control on the future or our situation, develop a new relationship with what is, like with the present moment, and learn to have a good, positive, friendly relationship with what is currently here and now, rather than trying to control it and changing it into something else. Like life just explodes into vivid color as we shift into that present moment, and we can see and appreciate and hear and feel and experience the now in a completely different way. But our brains don't do that. That happens as we shift back into an awareness and a consciousness that's beyond the brain that's creating these false cities on the horizon.
And that's just it's available for all of us. And you can call it spirit, you can call it consciousness, you can call it awareness, but pay attention and you'll experience it's something to feel your way into more than you're going to think your way into. It's something that you're going to experience more than you're going to analyze. And so if you'll just be open to that spot, like you're gonna find that flow, you're gonna find that current. But to give everybody a chance, and me included, because I had a long day in the sun today, let's do a practice and see if we can shift a little bit more into this moment. Do you mind leading us through?
I'd love to. Thanks, Nate. So go ahead and settle in wherever you are for this practice. If you have a chance to close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes just to eliminate distractions and maybe get into a posture where your spine can be straight. You can even lay down to do this, just as long as you're alert enough to be able to be present with it. So first, let's just slow down by taking 3 deep, conscious breaths. Sometimes on the out breath, it even helps to like add a sigh to it, just to let out any tension that's in your body. Whew. One more deep breath. And now let's turn our attention inward to our inner space, our inner island, if you will. And we're going to do this practice by asking ourselves a question and just sitting with the question for a moment. Here's the question to ask yourself as you're noticing your inner space, any discomfort or tension or anything there. Ask yourself this: what is pulling me toward the future rather than allowing me full presence in the here and now? What is pulling me toward the future rather than allowing me full presence in the here and now? As something arises, you might start to have thoughts, ideas come that of things that are pulling you toward the future. Maybe they're goals, and it's not that the goals are bad. It's the idea that we will only find future once the goals are realized that we're working with right here. But as something arises, a force that's pulling you toward the future, just notice this. Just look at it inwardly. Just observe its shape and form and feel into it. We're not trying to think about it or figure it out or analyze it or deconstruct it. Just notice this feeling inside you this impulse that is pulling you toward the future, and be present with it. Feel it for a few moments. As you come to full presence with this feeling, this impulse, this sensation, this desire, bring all of your attention to it. We're not trying to destroy it or be angry with it. Just be present with it and allow the miracle of full presence to do what it does as it works with this desire, this feeling, this impulse. You may notice that the desire, the feeling changes form and shape as you give presence to it. You might even notice a bit of a weakening of its influence on you. You're coming into a greater consciousness as you observe this and sit with this. So its power to control you will naturally lessen as you're present with it. Take a few more moments to bring full presence to this feeling, to this impulse. If you'd like to prolong this, if you feel that important movement is happening, go ahead and pause the podcast. Otherwise, go ahead and wrap up and open your eyes and take a deep breath to come back into the present moment. And it's a fascinating practice to me because it's simply just being present with what's there. These desires are real. These impulses are real. The things that our minds get converted to, that's going to change our future into an idealistic situation. They're very real, and they alter the way we feel about life. They alter our experiences. And as we come into full presence, our mind and that impulse loses control over the now, and we can just come into a more peaceful, relaxing, present state. Nate, what are your thoughts as we do this practice and sit with it?
Oh, a couple of things. Number one, like, it's surprising to me as I settle on one, I get distracted and something else comes up and I'm like, oh, that's pulling me out all of a sudden. It almost like slips, like I was holding on to a bar of soap or something, and I'm and maybe that's just me being flighty a little bit.
Not at all. That is absolutely what our minds do to us, right? Oh, you don't want this? Well, I got this other thing that we can hold on to over here.
And then I was like, wait, it was a good thing that you were still talking, because I was like, oh yeah. And so like I was almost like holding them both a little bit. But I did notice this, and I love your statement about it's just almost accepting that part of us too, that accepting that desire for the future, accepting the desire for good things, and allowing that to be almost settles down the tension that now is a good thing, and I can keep working on good things happening in the future. But I don't have to place my happiness in the future. I don't have to wait. Like, it's such a disgusting idea to wait for your entire life, like your life is a waiting room. Isn't there like a Dr. Seuss, though, the places you'll go? I swear there's like 2 pages on just the waiting place. Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
in the parable, we're waiting, we're paddling, and we're just spending our life in that boat. And the reality of it is, our mind is really good at getting us back in that boat so that we're not necessarily anywhere. We're just paddling toward somewhere else, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. So just being here, I like that. Slows me down. Honestly, like, had a long day a little bit. a little bit of a headache, a little bit of bad mood. So it's kind of nice just to settle back in and come to an acceptance of that isness, and if that's even a word, of the present moment, and I don't know, it feels better. It feels like a
Good.
good vibe there, yeah, frankly.
Very good. Yeah, isness. The first time I came across that word, I was like, "What in the world is that?" But that's I've come to love that concept of like isness is just actual state of things as they are right now, and as we change our relationship with what is, and start to just love the isness of things, life changes. Like as I was leading that practice, Nate, I felt a little shiver go up one of my legs. You know, I was like, I just came a little bit. You might experience, people that are listening might experience different things as you like wake up to the present moment. Sometimes there's physical sensations. Sometimes, like Nate said, sometimes our mind like just fights against it in some way, and maybe not fights, but it's just like grasping for, control there by bringing something else up. But just be patient with yourself. Know that that's the nature of being human. Is that once presence starts to arise, there's going to be, another reason not to be present, and just allow that those sensations, observe them, notice that there is a richness that's potentially there as we practice this. And that's why we call these practices. It's not like you do this once and you're done. It's like to be human is to have an egoic mind along for the ride and trying to like drive the bus or steer the boat or get us to the mainland, right? Whatever you want to use here. So just stick with these practices and you'll notice a growing sense of presence in your life, which means deeper joy, deeper peace, more rich existence. And we hope that's what's happening for everybody that's trying these practices.
Perfect. So here's what I would add this week, as you go through it, here's our invitation to you. In addition to whatever practices are working for you, when you find yourself in a spot where you're feeling more tense, more anxious, more out of sync, and just ask yourself that question: what is drawing me into a future state and taking me away from the present state? And just observe it and be willing to accept the isness that is, and just do that again and again, and just notice what happens as you observe and you pay attention there. Sound good?
Sounds great, Nate. Thanks, brother.
Hey, thank you, man. That was good for me. Hey, and if this is good for you, if it's working for you, just share it around. We're trying to do good and spread good. Find ways to help others in your family and others come more into this present moment and to feel how good life can be. Thanks, friends. We'll see you next time.